Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment special deep dive episode that we record exclusively for our patrons on Patreon and our academics on the Bestseller Academy. And today, how to start a publisher. This all started at the London Book Fair. I just finished moderating a panel at the London Book Fair Festival when two people with microphones bundled me into a dark corner. My cries of "please, not the face, I have so much to give to the world" were ignored. And actually, it turned out my kidnappers were in fact two delightful people who just wanted to interview me for a podcast. So now I know how most of our guests must feel. Not only were these two lovely people running a podcast, a time-consuming and foolhardy endeavour at the best of times, but they also run a fantastic new publisher, Hobeck Books. And I thought it would be great to get them on our podcast for a deep dive to dig into why they decided to start a publishing company and how to run one. So Hobeck Books is the brainchild of author and broadcaster Adrian Hobart and publisher Rebecca Collins. Rebecca has worked in publishing for publishers such as Bloomsbury, Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, Summersdale Publishers. She's a writer, she's written non-fiction poetry. And Adrian has been a broadcaster and journalist with the BBC for 25 years. He's also an audiobook narrator, filmmaker and writer. Rebecca and Adrian, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Very good. That sounds impressive, doesn't it, as a resume?
First time I've ever been diving, too.
Yes, get your snorkel. We're going deep today. Now, this is... the thing that, first of all, when you pounced on me, you gave me a badge. I've got a little badge there with the Hobeck pussycat on there. Great branding.
I'm so pleased you're still wearing it.
Oh yeah, I'm a good boy. I know. You know, when I'm given a badge, I'll wear it. Starting a publisher, though, that must be, especially, you started in your first book was published in July 2020, which, wow, what a time to start. Must have been kind of scary. Or was it exactly the right time? So what inspired you to do this?
It's a very good question. It was a combination of factors. I mean, I personally needed to do something different with my life. I've been at the BBC for eons. And I think it's fair to say that we both fell out of love with each other. So,
But hang on, I didn't know that.
Really?
We fell out of love with each other.
Not you.
Oh.
No, I know, BBC. My career. Anyway, but this coincided with Rebecca and I getting together. So, broadly speaking, and we'd known each other at university and had a couple of snogs and all that sort of thing. Both married to different people. And then we just found each other at the right time. And with Rebecca's publishing background, I don't know what I've done, creativity background, I suppose you would broadly describe it. It felt like a thing to do. But the key kicker for us was listening to a rival podcast, dare I say it, the Self-Publishing Show, and an episode with Jasper Joffe. Yeah, so quite too. Jasper Joffe of Joffe Books was on one of the early episodes of that. And obviously he's been immensely successful ever since. But that kind of inspired me to think, well, why don't we put these things together that we do?
Yeah, I think it was one Friday morning when you said to me, we should make a publishing company. And I said, yeah, okay, why not?
It was a leap of naivety, chutzpah, what can possibly go wrong, that kind of thing. And
I think that's exactly how Facebook started. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think to be honest, you could see that other people were at it, and we listened to your show as well, and it was, I think 3 or 4 years ago, the indie scene felt like a world of possibility. Certainly that was what was being projected, and I think it's a lot tougher. It's turned out to be a lot tougher in recent months. But, nonetheless, that was the leap of faith. And, I mean, other sort of factors came into play, such as, I became the narrator for Adam Croft, who's another sort of leading figure in the indie scene. And that sort of gave me, that first personal contact with somebody who had achieved. And from there on, we built a bigger network and got stuck in. But boy, oh boy, did we not really appreciate what was involved.
So what are those first building blocks? You both have your expertise, and Rebecca, I imagine you got contacts in the industry as well. What was your first step? Was it putting together a business plan? Was it thinking about goals, or were you looking for capital or funding? What was your sort of map of how to do this?
Well, in terms of capital, so we both sold the properties that we were living in to get our own properties separately because we were both going through divorce. So we have sort of self-funded quite a lot.
We have a lot.
We also got a what's they called?
Bounce back loan.
That's it, a bounce back loan.
Yeah,
during the pandemic.
So that came in at a good time. We didn't really have to prove our credentials. But in terms of a business plan, no. I mean,
I did actually write one, actually. I did write a business plan.
I don't think we've ever looked at it again. But, I mean, in terms of the basics, I think we started, first of all, we had an idea for a logo. So the cat logo that's on your badge and on the mic boxes here. That was the kicking point. So we thought of a name, Hobeck, combining our names. So I provide the Ho, you provide the Beck. That felt right. And I think we'd been watching The Trip with Coogan and Rob Brydon, and they've been talking about Hobeck Girl. And so, so suddenly Hobeck came into my head, and I thought that will stick, and we loved it. Get the logo, and then all the basic stuff. It was took us a few months to get ourselves organised in terms of getting a website, getting an accountant, registering the company, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the capital principally has come from the two of us. It has to be said. I mean, one or two of the authors have chipped in as well whenever things have really got tough. But yeah, I mean, it's been built from the ground up with our blood, sweat and tears, but really.
I would say, though, that getting some of those basics ready sound quite complicated, setting up a website, getting an accountant, starting a mailing list, the typesetting and finding editors. But I think from my experience, that wasn't actually too difficult, wasn't too challenging. Editors, I did have some friends who had done editing, and that sort of led to finding people who specialised in crime and fiction, and it just kind of happened.
When you wrote that sort of, Rebecca, you said you wrote a sort of basic business plan. Can you recall what was on that? Was there some sort of goal that you had in mind? Was there some sort of ethos? Because you're publishing mainly thrillers, although I see the old ghost story sneaking in there. Was there a kind of ethos that you had in mind? What sort of publisher were you going to be?
Well, so our motto is Trad Values, Indie Spirit, and that's what we wanted to bring. So I was the Trad Values because I'd worked in traditional publishing for over 20 years, and Indie Spirit is sat next to me. But it was sort of taking some of the inspiration from self-published authors, how they work, how they market their books as well, and how they engage with the public. Taking that, but also putting a lot of effort into the typesetting and the editing and the cover design. We wanted it to be a very polished product, so taking the traditional values from there, but just being us. So being a small publisher, we didn't initially think we would expand and have a big team of people. It was still just us doing most of the work with freelance cover designers and freelance editors, freelance proofreaders helping us. But that's kind of what we wanted to do, is it?
Well, yeah, I think we wanted to publish fiction that excited us. We wanted to find some new talent, and what we've ended up with is so far a list which is a mix of experienced writers and first timers, and we signed books on the basis of whether we both enjoyed them. And hope that we can establish a reputation as Hobeck, that whenever you pick up a Hobeck book, you're going to love it, because it's gone through our sort of filter, I suppose.
Yeah, we do. We say this quite openly. We go on gut feeling. We have an awareness of the market, and we have an awareness of trends. We read the bookseller every week, but we get a submission, and you just know. I think you just know within the first 10 pages or so, is this a keeper? And I think all of the books we've signed up have been along those lines, where we've just gone with gut feeling.
For sure. Absolutely. We're perhaps becoming a little bit more strategic as we go along, because, you can take a punt. It's the same with every publisher. They'll publish something, and some things will fly and others don't. So, and it's kind of managing that expectation. I suppose it's a bit like Dragon's Den, the basis, they make their investments on the basis that one of them will really succeed and pay for all the others. And hopefully they'll all come right. But you can never tell. And also when you're signing up an author, our due diligence has become a little tighter, I suppose. But you never know what sort of person you're signing. I mean, that could be a very important factor because, all of our authors need to be handled in a slightly different way from each other. You can't, there's no one size fits all.
One of our authors actually calls us her book parents, and that's what it's like.
Yeah.
They're like our children, and they've all got different personalities.
Yeah.
You never get two the same. Like you do with your children, if you have that many.
Rebecca, I worked in publishing for 25 years. It's okay to say that some authors are completely mad. It's fine. It's accepted. They know, we know. I appreciate that. It's because it's not just tins of beans on a shelf. Each one of these books is unique. Each author has a different way of doing things, has different expectations as well. Let's talk about where it started, though, because your first author, and I was delighted by this. Your first author was Robert Dawes, who might be best known to people as a fantastic actor. For me, he was Tuppy Glossop in Jeeves of Worcester back in the day, known for things like Outside Edge. Now, he had published a book called The Rock in 2012, I believe, which is not the novelisation of the Michael Bay film. It's a Sullivan and Broderick mystery set on Gibraltar. Was Robert someone you knew? Did he come to you? How did that come about?
That came about completely by chance, really. We went to the Morecambe Vice Crime Festival in Morecambe in 2019, it would have been. And Robert was due to appear with Adam Croft to do their podcast, the Partners in Crime podcast, live on stage in front of the audience. And Robert had a family issue, which meant he couldn't do it. So suddenly I was on stage, like 10 minutes notice. It went really well, thank goodness. But as a result of that, and he heard it, he thought, I like the cut of the jib, in terms of what we were trying to do with Hobeck. So we get this phone call, I'd like to bring my books to you. And we immediately sort of went, that's lovely, Robert.
But no.
But no, thank you. We're not ready for you.
We all we have is a logo and a business card. I think we were honest with him.
Yeah.
We don't think we're the right publisher for you. You're very well known and you've got the crime books that you've already published. That's very sweet of you to think of us. But then he said, actually, no, I want you to publish my books. Yeah.
So he had something fresh to bring to market, which was Killing Rock, which is the third of the books. And we were getting the rights to the other two, and we repackaged those. But we were still suffering from enormous imposter syndrome. I remember walking around our garden talking to Robert and going, look, please, Bob, you've got to back off. We're not ready for you. Find out that there'll be plenty of people who want your books. And he insisted. And we're very glad he did, because one of the things that we really had no idea how we were going to do it was how to find authors. And so we'd set off to Morecambe and Vice thinking that in the crowd there'll be one or two people who aspire to be authors and are into crime or whatever. We might be pick them up and start with that way. But by having Robert Dawes there, it immediately gave Hobeck credibility in the marketplace, and we were flooded with offers, with submissions almost immediately afterwards. So Uncle Bob, as we call him now, because he's really sort of the father figure of the company.
So we're the parents and we have Uncle Bob.
Yeah, Uncle Bob supporting us in the background. It really makes a big difference. And also, we took him to London Book Fair on the middle day, and he just has this amazing aura. He can work a room like nobody I've ever seen before. Just people warm to him immediately. And, we're both introverts. In those sort of circumstances, it takes a lot of courage to approach someone.
I know, you said that we dived on you.
I can tell you what.
We were saying, shall we ask him? Shall we? No, you ask.
It was honestly, we did it with great trepidation, and the reason it felt like a leap was the fact that it was one of those. It was like one of those movies where the geek suddenly finds his feet and out starts talking.
I was honoured. I was honoured. It was such a joy. It really was.
But yeah, Robert gives us credibility, and he gives us immense sort of moral support, I suppose. Whenever it's funny, whenever we sort of start to wobble in terms of confidence about where things are going, he'll always be the one who suddenly he's on the phone, and he'll sense it when we need him to remind us that, we're actually better than we think we are.
Let's talk about the critical path for publishing, that's sort of the everyday, the macro and the micro of publishing, because you're currently publishing I'm looking at your schedule on your website. You publish anywhere between 1 and 4 books a month. Which feels, for a lot of people might feel, oh, that's manageable, but I imagine that is a hell of a lot of work. So let's talk about the critical path from submission, edits, copy edits, proofreads, cover design. What does a day look like for you guys, and what does a month look like for you guys when it comes to
that's a good question.
That's a difficult question. No day is the same for a start, because there are lots of books all at different stages to each other. So if I talk about from submission to the final book, we'll get the submission, we'll both read it independently of each other, because we don't want to influence what the other thinks. Yeah. And then we'll come together. Usually one of us will go, have you read it yet? Not giving anything away. And if we decide we both like it, we'll ask for the full manuscript, because people will submit just 3 chapters. Mm-hmm. They will read the full manuscript. We both try to read the whole thing, but usually one of us gets to the end and the other one is sort of halfway and thinks, yeah, definitely, this is a good one.
Yeah.
Then we approach the author. We say, we'd like to sign you up. We have a meeting. We talk about, with them, the process.
We have a proposal document which sort of outlines the ethos and the way that we approach everything, so that's all marked out. That's kind of like a pre-contract conversation starter. Mm-hmm. Then the contract, that's more complex. I mean, it does tend to vary. We've got a sort of pro forma thing that we had drawn up by a top lawyer to,
And it cost us a conservatory.
Right.
And then after that, we, because some authors want to retain things like film rights and audio rights or whatever it might be, because they've got an in that field. So, I mean, for instance, Robert's agents, Robert Dawes' Hold the Rock TV and film rights, should that ever sort of develop into anything. But by and large, we're getting the whole bundle. And, sometimes the length of the contract will be, some are longer, some of the sort of full life and 70 years kind of jobs, and the others are shorter. But it just depends. I mean, we're reasonably flexible. We don't, we're not there to squeeze the pips on the contract. But once we've got to that stage, then we've got the manuscript.
Talking about being flexible, well, one thing that we feel very strongly about is we listen to the author. It's their baby, and we say to them, what ideas do you have for what the book is going to look like? Who are your readers? Who are your competitors? Because as much research that we can do into these things, they know more than we do, and we want to listen to them. We want to take into consideration what they think.
Yeah. And so when we get the first draft in, or whatever number of drafts it might have been, some authors have like their own support network, so they go. For instance, quite a few of our authors have been on a creative writing courses to things like UEA in Norwich. And they'll have retained a sort of an influential circle of other authors to whom they'll pass the manuscript around, and then it'll come to us. And once that's happened, we go through several rounds of
so we will read it. One of us will read it and give structural feedback quite often, won't we?
Yeah.
And then the author will go away and do some tweaks. And then when it's ready for editing, at the moment, we have 2 or 3 editors that we use, freelance editors, all very experienced, in the crime fiction, thriller genres. It gets seen by them. They talk to the author with tweaks and suggestions for feedback as well. And at the same time, we're working on the cover and the blurb. We write the blurb in collaboration with the author. We always send what we've written to the author, and sometimes they say, nah, that's completely wrong. or vice versa sometimes.
Yeah, that can be one of the toughest bits of the process, I think, because we've got experience in terms of writing a blurb that's going to appeal to readers, which is the crucial thing, because it's not so much the back cover blurb. In our game, it's what people read on Amazon. That's the crucial thing. And you've only got those first 2 or 3 sentences in which to grab them before, it goes to read more. The same with the cover. So we've used 2 cover designers to date.
Actually 3 if you include spiffing.
Oh, yes, of course. I'm sorry. Yes, one of our forthcoming series has been outsourced by the author himself, came to us with the covers, which was, a departure from the norm. But we've developed our own in-house designer, I suppose you would describe her, Jane. Yeah,
so part of our indie ethos is we will give people opportunities to work with us who might not otherwise have. So at the moment, I'm using a proofreader who's never been a proofreader before, but she wanted to give it a go. Our main cover designer, I used to go to Zumba with. She's a photographer and a graphic designer. She did a graphic design course at college quite a few years ago. I hope she won't mind me saying that. And when we were publishing Robert Dawes, I approached her and I said, "Do you fancy trying your hand at book cover design?" And she said, "God, no. I know nothing about book cover design." But she did. She had a go and she designed those book covers.
They're amazing.
Thank you.
And she's done most of ours, I'd say, since then.
Yeah.
And she's developed in her craft as well, along with us. And she's also had other commissions from other writers who've seen her book covers and approached her separately. So yeah, it's a 3-way process in terms of those covers. So we'll take the first look when they're sent through from Jane and pick up on things that we think need tweaking, and then we'll send it to the authors, and it's a sort of to and fro process until we're all happy. But by and large, that's probably 3 rounds of designs probably each time. Yeah, it reminds
Tweaks.
me. Do you remember that program called Street Mate with Davina?
Vaguely.
Yeah. So when we get but it was basically she would go out in the street with a person who was looking for a date, and she'd say, "What do you think about him over there? No, not. What do you think about that chap over there?" And they'd approach the person and say, "Fancy going on a date?" And eventually they'd have a match and they'd go, "Yes, street mate, we've matched." It's a bit like that with cover design.
I'm really surprised that format didn't survive.
So you eventually get to a point where everyone's happy and they want to go on a date with the cover, and that's great.
But it's a difficult process because, you're trying, we've got sort of two approaches here. I mean, we're trying to make sure that the covers stand out and, but at the same time, conform to genre expectations. And so, and with Rebecca being beyond, the publishing side of Rebecca, you are an artist.
Yes.
You have three degrees in the thing. So, or 2 degrees. I've lost count. You're a qualified artist. And so there's this desire. And I'm the same when I was at the BBC. We're always trying to find that slightly different approach.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that can be counterproductive if you take it too far. And so we've actually, on one occasion had to redesign the covers because the book wasn't selling as it was. It just wasn't telling people that, it was a certain type of crime book, cozy.
So we don't always get it right.
No. Yeah. No. You have
the interesting thing
having the courage to do
that. Sales we had a change in sales, didn't we? We changed the
big
cover.
time. Yeah.
Made a difference.
Yeah. No, it can make a huge difference. Absolutely huge. So how long, I guess this is, how long is a piece of string question, but from an author submitting to being published, how long does that normally take? Because Rebecca, you'll remember that from traditional publishing, very often that critical path was dictated by retailer schedules, us saying to them, we're going to publish this in August, and come hell or high water, we have to publish in August. And if you delay it, it creates all sorts of problems in the critical path. So you're not having to do that this time.
No, not so much, no.
So does that give you some sort of elasticity when it comes to publishing?
A little bit, but I must admit, I do have that sort of, I still retain some of that sense of, if we say December, it must be December, even though there is more flexibility, but I think I can't help it because I'm used to that. We normally say about 6 months, don't we, from submission to publication, no less than 6 months.
Yeah, we I mean, with Robert, that was quite a rushed process, even though the books had been, obviously were in good shape. we feel that we need 6 months to, just in case there's a slippage in any of the elements, and there could be all manner of reasons why that gets held up. If we were trying to satisfy retailers and bricks and mortar stores, then it would be a longer time because they need to know it's coming a lot longer than that. And they really, this is one of the issues being an indie publisher is that, of course we do publish paperbacks, and increasingly we're using, rather than print on demand, we're doing print runs with clays. So, one of the big, almost, 50% of books in the country seem to be produced by them.
Clays.
And big, it's a big commitment. But it is frustrating in the sense that, occasionally the odd indie store with a geographical relationship to the author will take the book. But, we're still not having those, we're not in that position to have a conversation with Waterstones or W.H. Smiths and say, the next blockbuster from Robert Dawes is coming. So, make some shelf space for it. It doesn't quite work that way. And I think that's probably going to take us,
way beyond when we retire.
No, I don't think.
Well,
I hope not.
I'd like to talk about the future in a minute, because that is absolutely fascinating, and we're living in very turbulent times when it comes to books. But just to go back to, you mentioned contracts and pro forma contracts and what have you. What sort of, I don't want you to give away any trade secrets, but what sort of deals are you offering authors? Are you giving advances, or are you offering a split? What's the deal when it comes to your authors?
Well, no advances is sadly, we're not in a position to offer them. But what we are offering is very generous royalty rates. So our current recent signings, generally speaking, we're talking about everyone will get to 50%. And certainly our earlier authors, that's how we started. So it's 30% up to a certain point of number of sales, and then we go to 50%, 50-50 split on net royalties. So, that's, it means that we're taking quite a big risk, really, from our perspective, because, all the production costs are coming our way, and then the marketing as well comes out of our slice. A book has to be selling quite a few copies, 2 or 3, 4, 5,000 for us to start really generating a profit. So that's quite a sort of, especially when you're introducing a new author without any sort of, cold starting an author in this very congested marketplace. But, we feel 50-50 reflects their creative input in a world where we can't offer advances at this stage.
No, I think that's fair enough. I was talking to a friend who runs a small publisher at EasterCon at the weekend, and he was indie through and through until he started running a publisher, and then he was sort of confessed. He was saying, "Now I know publishers work the way they do, because, as you say, one book might be a smash hit, but a bunch of other books might not do as well as you'd hoped. And when you're looking at that P&L at the end of a quarter, at the end of a year or whatever, it can be 1 or 2 books that are propping everyone up. And if you're giving all of those authors advances as well, then that has a massive effect on your bottom line. And I do wonder if, certainly I know from talking to people in traditional publishing, they'd love to get rid of the advance because it really hits them, whereas authors would much prefer to have a bit of money up front, so it's...
And we sympathise with that, and we would love to be in that position. But, we're taking...
We'd have to sell the cat, I think.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
We've got a couple of authors who've got agents, but by and large, we're talking about picking up people who haven't been picked, who have gone through that route, tried to get an agent, haven't managed it, and, need a break. And I suppose, it's... we're open and honest about that position. And, the most important thing to them is to get their books out there. Yeah. What we're not doing is charging them for the
of course.
Which so many other companies do, for getting the book out there and charging over the odds for it. So, we're still yet to really prove the model works for all concerned consistently. but that's what we're striving to do on a day-to-day basis with the marketing side of things is to try and find the model that works. But the trouble is, as you know, I mean, the model shifts every 5 seconds. Yes. So
really kept on our toes.
Well, Facebook, I mean, it's the latest thing to really shift, isn't it? So all the targeting options that people were relying on to find their micro audience that really their books would appeal to, suddenly all those targeting options have been stripped away. And that has left people, we've gone very broad in our targeting. So when we're on Facebook now, it's, we'll probably pick crime fans and a particular very broad genre. And that'll be as much targeting and then age group and gender and location. But that's about it. So that's a really broad brushstroke compared to what it used to be like even 6 months ago. It's just very problematic.
And is that the big focus of the advertising, sort of Amazon ads and Facebook ads and stuff like that, and BookBub, I get? Is that something you're dabbling with?
We've really disappointed with the impact of BookBub, truthfully. We've had featured deals, the big ones. We've had the new launch deals, and we've done the advertising. And frankly, we've lost money on every single one. And I think that the market, we've used a lot of those other non-BookBub options over in the States, particularly, like sort of
Fussy Librarian and
Robin Reed's and that stuff. And they're priced more reasonably, I think, in the sense that for the money you put in, you get that back. But with BookBub, it's a massive gamble, and I think that its impact has diminished hugely. Plus, it's mostly we're talking about UK writers writing UK style books, and not stuff that necessarily appeals to the American market. It's much harder sell. So probably a couple of our titles have flown in the States, which is very gratifying. But most of them, they're not really used to sort of, there isn't as big a market for traditional police procedurals.
Some of our books are doing quite well in Canada.
Yeah. I can sort of understand it. There's a greater understanding of British culture there, but it's funny because I see this with my books, which are very British, and there's a certain kind of Britishness that sells in the States. The kind of Downton Abbey posh Britishness does quite well, but they can get a bit befuddled by other stuff. But it's interesting because we've spoken to Angela Marsons, who's published by Bookouture, and she went to every sort of UK publisher and they said, your books are set in the Black Country. No one outside of Birmingham's going to be interested. And she's just announced that she sold 5 million copies worldwide. So, it's just incredible. So you never know what's going to break out. And I think once you start trying to chase that, then you lose a bit of identity. You lose the things that make those books unique. So I think you have to be true to yourself, really. So you've got this focus on Amazon KDP, Kindle Unlimited. I can see audiobooks and other platforms. You have your own audiobook store. But yeah, you are selling paperbacks directly from your website. And as you said, it's not all POD. You're ordering from Clay. So you're holding stock and you've got sort of, stock turnover and all the costs that come with delivering books as well. But that's how is that working for you? Are people delighted to sort of find someone who's not Amazon? Because there's always a risk if you throw everything in with Amazon. It's their rules, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there is an issue there. There's no question. I mean, I think we're a little bit, afraid to try and go wide. I mean, our philosophy was that when we started, if you're driving sales to one platform, then you're narrowing your marketing costs. I think that, the impact of sort of going broader would be quite hard to achieve. But there is this sort of reticence to buy from Amazon, and we recognise that. But to be honest, it's we've seen a trend anyway in the last 9 months that Kindle Unlimited is becoming an ever bigger part of the revenue stream. In fact, it is more than 50% now.
Wow.
So page reads, we're we're publishing books which generate page reads. People want to keep getting, cracking on to the end. And I think the people looking with the pinch financially, I think, you certainly see this in fora that deal with on Facebook about, crime writing. People can't actually afford paperbacks. The sort of the average punter, they're not going out and buying them nearly as much because, a tenner, which is now going to be the standard cost, I think, for a paperback in the UK because there's a massive rise in printing costs,
yes,
even for the big publishers. We're already at that point. We've always been $9.99 for pretty much every title. The facts are that people can't afford that so much. And I think that, if they've got Amazon Prime for everything else, getting Kindle Unlimited, library access makes a lot of sense to people. And so, it's an increasing, it is about, on average, 55% of our revenue comes in from Kindle Unlimited now. So it's very hard to imagine us breaking free of that ecosystem.
That's fascinating. I was at, as I said, I was at EasterCon at the weekend, and they had a panel of publishers, some indies, and they had Marcus Gibbs from Gollancz and Orion there, talking about exactly this, that the cost of paper is going up and continuing to go up. And paperbacks have been very cheap for a very long time, actually. The margins are very, very slim, and they're going to be almost non-existent. So physical books are really going to go up in the next year or so. It's going to be
If we are to continue as an industry, the publishing industry, continue to make paperbacks, the price just has to go up. Like you say, it's been around that mark, hasn't it, for years? It hasn't increased that much since 20 years ago.
And we can't commission the sort of print runs that get the prices down, but even then, we've been our most successful book to date, The Genesis Inquiry by Ollie Jarvis. We've had 3 reprints, and each time the price has gone up by about 15 to 20%. It's
paper costs.
The paper costs, so it's racing up. So now we're having to sort of commit to bigger print runs to try and mitigate.
We do either, don't we? We either commit to it. If we think we can sell that particular title, we will do a bigger print run and just fingers crossed, or we do print on demand with Ingram Spark instead.
Right.
So
I was talking to another publisher at the weekend, and they were saying the same thing to you about KU and also audio, and they're publishing in fantasy. So they're saying the longer the better. If it's 250,000 words, epic fantasy, people feel they're getting real value for money from KU, or their Audible. If something is 30 hours long, they feel there's great value for money. But of course, printing something like that physically, is almost impossible and so prohibitively expensive that, so there does seem to be a divergence in certainly in the fantasy genre, they like it thick and chunky. So is there kind of an ideal word count that you're looking for that makes you the most money?
70,000,
maybe 80 to 100 is. I mean, it. Well, let's put it this way: we get some of our authors write over 100, and we'll put the squeeze on.
Well, the price has to be high. If it's over 100,000 words, it tends to be $12.99.
Yeah, to make it. But I take your point about people seeing value in a longer audiobook production.
Ebook,
absolutely. In my experience, anything, and this is from external work that I've done outside of the Hobeck sort of sphere as a narrator, no question, if it's not 8 hours or more, so 80,000 words, it's 10,000 words per finished hour, really. People don't want to know. But then, there's a limit to my stamina. I mean, I think the longest book I've done is about 15 hours. And it's exhausting, especially as I was working to a very tight schedule from an external company. They wanted,
and lots of people were dying all the time.
Well, that was the other thing. I mean,
you had to get very angry.
It was a sword, sandal, blood, sand epic set in the Roman Empire.
So he would come out of the booth and say, "I want my coffee," or "Dying."
Yes. I mean, think
gone, cat.
Yeah, it was very much like that because some of the battle scenes were 70 pages long, and you got 4 or 5 different Deus Ex Machina kind of moments where the 6 men left of the 9th Legion are suddenly saved by marauding elephants or something coming over the horizon.
That's why you'd come out marauding us.
Yeah, honestly, it stayed with me for days. Damn it, woman!
Where's my food?
Where's my mead? Whatever.
Speaking of cats, which were mentioned a few minutes ago, I think the thing that you're doing that goes beyond the usual Facebook ads, Amazon ads, thing that we can all do as indie authors if we want, is that you are providing this wonderful branding. There is something about Hobeck that looks welcoming. I see you've got those I'm an advanced reader mugs that you've been sending out on social media, which look great. Your social media feels real and personal. Talk about building that brand and what you hope that Hobeck does mean to both authors and readers.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because we haven't really thought too much about how to build the brand. We've just done it very organically. We had the logo, which was inspired by the cat. She's very important to us and the business. She doesn't know this, and the social media I love it. I absolutely love doing this.
This is your thing.
Yes. Yeah. So engaging with people, the readers, the writers, the reviewers, the bloggers, all these people. I love talking to them every day, and it takes a long time, but feels like fun. It doesn't feel like work at all.
Yeah.
And I suppose we built up this brand just based on who we are as people, just being ourselves. We have a weekly newsletter as well, where we just talk about what we've done over the last week. And the cat often appears in that as well, doesn't she? So,
invariably. I think, it's all part of the family ethos. We see the readers as an extension of that, and indeed, I think that's borne out by a number of people who will buy every single book that we do in paperback. As soon as it comes up in pre-order, they're there, and realistically, business-wise, if we had 1,000 people who felt that way about Hobeck, then every book we publish is in the black straight away. And that's what we're building towards. But I think that, for the authors, they feel it's really been very important for them to feel that they're supported by each other. And they do that. They've got a Facebook group which they, share things. And
I want to know if they have a secret Facebook group.
Yeah, I bet they do. I bet they do. A WhatsApp group.
They almost certainly will. Don't you worry.
Yeah. And I think that's super important. And they've been very supportive of each other when they launch and all that sort of thing. So that's great. We'll gradually get them together as groups and build those friendships and relationships as they go. But we make a big thing of trying to get out to see all the authors in person once we started a relationship with them.
We're very lucky. Most of them live by the sea, so I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, something about crime writing in the seaside.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? Writers like to live by the sea.
But I think the wider thing about the social media is that you can only. I think if you present yourself as something you're not, then
for what it's hard work.
They see through it. Yeah, I mean, look, we're not going to do a Tony Robbins and
I'd be a rubbish spy, I can tell you that.
Do the big teeth and the keynote speeches and feel the power within, all that sort of stuff. That's not us. We're two fairly introverted, polite, middle class English people who
I'm working
who find it hard to sort of do the hard sell. I mean, we're uncomfortable with that.
We're not selling people at all, are we? We're not salesmen. Women,
salespeople. No, well, no, we're not really. I think before.
Please buy our book because we loved it. It's really good.
Yeah. I saw something doing the rounds on social media yesterday that was a piece of text that just said, "I'm crap at marketing. Please buy my book." And it seems to be working because it's going around. It's every author I know is sharing it. But let's talk about the future. And where you're going. And there are these challenges of costs rising. Cost of living is going up. Your editors, your artists, they're going to start charging more. Audiobook narrators will start charging more. All things are going to be going up. So there are challenges, those sort of basic financial challenges. But what do you see for the future of Hobeck? Will you be expanding beyond thrillers, or is that going to be your bread and butter for the moment?
I think it stays there really for now.
Although we do have one non-fiction book in the pipeline.
Yes, we're writing one ourselves.
We're writing a book.
A diary
really?
a diary of our year, running the company and everything else that went with it, and COVID and all that stuff. So that's something we do. We top up every day, write a daily entry. So we'll see how that fits together, whether that's going to be worth reading.
It will be.
Yeah, no,
I know you're not very good at marketing, but it will be.
No, I think we've got 21 authors on the books now. We've approached the 22nd. Realistically, juggling that many people between the two of us is probably reaching the limit. I would say probably we'll get to 25, and that would be absolutely the limit. So we're probably not going to open the windows for submissions for some time yet. And, it's about, for those first-time authors that we've already published, it's about nursing them through to the second book and the third book. What we need to do, and what is working well for the indie community, is having a series of books or a number of titles, because the cost of advertising has gone up. There's no longer the sort of, you really can't go on Amazon and sort of go, here's a 20p bid and expect to get anywhere with it. It doesn't work like that. So what we need is our authors to get to their, fourth and fifth books, really as quickly as possible, in an ideal world, so that when we make a sale at a click cost that's probably more than we are getting back in terms of royalties, it's worth it if the read-through adds up. And that's what we're trying to do. And, it's no secret. I mean, some of the authors can write extremely quickly, very dedicated. And we've got, we've just signed somebody who's already got the first 3 books ready, which is fantastic, and plans for more. And then another one who's got plans for 42 books in the series or something like that.
Wow.
If we're still around then. So, which is amazing. And I think that's crucial. But we still have room for standalones. In fact, our most successful books have all been standalones, funnily enough. And, with possible sequels to come. But yeah, I think that's one of the things. I mean, actually surviving, the bumps and troughs as they come along is going to be our key aim. We can't pretend that we're paying ourselves a salary yet. We're not. We're still, putting everything that comes in goes straight out back into the business. And Rebecca's working, a number of freelance jobs to keep a roof over our heads. And
thank you, Bloomsbury.
Yeah, and I need to do something similar, really, at some point. I mean, it could be that we've got less time to run Hobeck. We'll have to be much more efficient if I have to go out and work as well. Which I think is coming.
They can take over.
But no, I think we found something that we love doing together. We love doing. Being creative. We love making a difference to our authors and our readers as, the best way we can. And so the aim is to keep going into our retirement years, which is 10, 15 years away. So, and keep going beyond that, perhaps,
Well, for me, it doesn't feel like work. Every day is different. Like I said, we could be doing a bit of advertising on Facebook. We could do a bit of typesetting. We could be briefing a cover.
Yeah,
it's all different.
I could be in my studio here doing narration. Yeah,
or in the pink chair watching something on your phone.
Yeah, probably more likely.
But I can't imagine not doing it. So I just want to carry on. And I think one thing we've also said is we want to see how we can maximise the intellectual property that we've got at the moment. So see what other opportunities there are in terms of other rights and other avenues. And same in marketing. We've just started using TikTok. No idea whether it's going to bring us any sales or not, but it's something to do every day and it's fun. So it might do, and that'll be a bonus. And, yeah.
Wonderful stuff. Folks, if you want to find a beautiful list of books with fantastic covers that have been published with love, then do check out hobeck.net. We'll put links in the show notes so you can check it out. Adrian, Rebecca, I wish you every luck with this. I'll be wearing my badge with pride. And here's hoping that future is very, very bright and you bring lots of happiness to readers and authors. And thank you so much for speaking to me today.
Mark, you're so welcome.
Thank you so much.